How by accepting his lotus feet as one's only asset, then one can know the true essence of devotional service. This is a profound statement, but as is said in the Shastra, Yasya Devi para bhaktir yata Devi tatagaro tasyaite katitahyarta prakashanti mahatmanaha. That for one who has implicit faith in both the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the essence of Vedic knowledge is revealed. It's not something that comes by intellectual pursuit. Nayamatma pravachanena labdyo na medayana bahuna shutena yami vaisha vinute tena labdyas tasyaisha eva vravinute tanum swam. The Shastra also says that just by becoming an excellent speaker or by great intelligence or by much study, one can't come to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But by devotion, finally, I get relief. And one can know Krishna because actually it's that when one reforms one's mood in life and becomes submissive to Krishna, then Krishna feels inclined to reveal himself to the devotee. Vedeshu durlabam adurlabam atma bhaktau. Brahma says in his Samhita that by studying the Vedas you can't come to know Krishna, but if you're a bhakta, if you become devotionally inclined towards Krishna, then you can know him very easily. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and he also comes as the Acharya. So he's both the devotee and Krishna at the same time. So there's a double benefit. He's teaching Krishna consciousness as a devotee, but he's also Krishna. So if one dedicates him or herself to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, which means in service, what it means to dedicate oneself to the lotus feet, it means to become a servant. And think, how can I do something to assist Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What is his desire and how can I help him? And if one does this, then the person will know the true essence of devotional service. Then he goes on to say that the heart of anyone who gives submissive oral reception to the pleasing and sweet pastimes of Lord Chaitanya immediately becomes cleansed of all material contamination. Hridaya nirmala. This contamination in the heart is completely cleansed. If one gets on a regular schedule of hearing about Krishna and about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then he says, anyone who simply chants the name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya will immediately develop love of God. So try. Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Yes, and as I was doing artik in my home this morning, and I offer the incense, and then I have to walk out on the porch to plant the incense, and then when I offer the lamp, I had to walk in the other room to find Nirkula to let her touch the lamp. And all the time I was still chanting the Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda mantra. And I was remembering that the first time I came in contact with the Krishna conscious movement, I got a magazine that had a picture of Lord Chaitanya on the front, and then it had the mantra of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. And also there was an article where Prabhupada said, we are following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. And I became fascinated by the form of Lord Chaitanya. I didn't know exactly who he was, but I started reading. And I always felt that whenever, after I joined the temple, we'd chant the Sri Krishna Chaitanya mantra, or I'd hear somebody else chant it, there was special mercy coming from that mantra. And then I confirmed it. It's in all the Shastras saying that the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is especially merciful. The name of Krishna and all the names of God are known to be fully potent. But the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, says Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is especially merciful because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't consider any offenses when you chant. So if you chant the name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, then you'll immediately develop love of Godhead. And then he says, I offer him all congratulations by saying bravo. So somebody is to be congratulated who actually attains even a modicum of success in devotional service, the person becomes famous all over the world. Even if one's a little bit advanced, what to speak of someone who moves to the intermediate level? What to speak of somebody who's, by special mercy and practice, comes to the highest level? And if anyone feels ecstasy and cries by simply hearing the transcendental qualities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he at once understands the eternal loving affairs between Radha and Krishna. So the Srimad Bhagavatam says that if one is chanting the holy names and tears don't come to his eyes, then this person is known to be steel-hearted. The heart is steel-framed. So the heart has to melt. Evam vratasva priyanama kirta. Look that verse up that I just said about steel-framed heart. I don't think it's in there. It's in the second canto of Bhagavatam. Evam vratasva priyanama kirtya jitana rago jita chuta uchara. The result of taking a vow to chant Hare Krishna is that one's heart will be druta chitta, say. Yeah, druta means melted, and chitta. So this is a good sign. When one chants Hare Krishna, one's heart melts, and one feels emotion. And this is described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the advanced stages of love of God. There's a way in which one's heart is touched by a ray of the internal energy of the Lord, and then it becomes softened, and then spiritual emotions can enter in. So this crying, tears coming from the eyes is a considerably fortunate occurrence for a devotee who can feel this. And so he's to be congratulated, and anyone who feels that ecstasy will understand. I'll come back to it. Anyone who has understood that the associates of Lord Chaitanya are eternally liberated souls immediately becomes eligible to enter into the abode of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan in his next birth. So the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the world, and then he revealed that he was Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, of course, all of his intimate associates then realized, well, if Krishna's here, all his associates must be here also. Then they realized, oh, we're all his associates. And Lord Chaitanya revealed their positions as his eternal associates also. However, anyone who enters into the Sankirtan movement and takes up association with the servants of the servants of the servants of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, according to the song, becomes considered a Nitya Siddha. If anyone understands that there's no difference between Gauda Mandala, the place in West Bengal wherein Lord Chaitanya had his pastimes, and the transcendental abode of Sri Vrindavan, then he actually lives in Vrindavan. Because by worshipping Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then one can properly enter into Vrindavan. Otherwise, there's no access. Finally, this Gaura Prema Rasarnave, this is the ocean of Gauranga's prema, his love for Krishna. If one sport, say Shetarange Jeba Dube, and if you take pleasure in the Sankirtan movement, if this is your life and soul, this is what you do in your life, and that you have no other ambition other than to become more and more involved in the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by distributing love of God, then you become a confidential devotee of Sri Sri Radha Madhava. This is the great secret of the Sankirtan movement. And it doesn't matter which ashram you live in. Grihe Baba Nete Take Hagoranga Bolidake. Have you heard that before? Yes. Did it stick in your mind? Yes. Yeah. Grihe Baba Nete Take Hagoranga Bolidake. It means in the Grihe, if you live in a house, a little house or a big house, doesn't matter. Or if you live in the Banete, if you live in the Ban, in the forest, then either way, Hagoranga Bolidake. If you live in either place, whether if you're a devotee and take part in the Sankirtan movement, then Narottam Das Thakur is considering you liberated. And he aspires for your association, as we should aspire for the association of all devotees. Gaurangera Dutipada Jadana Sampada Gaurangera Dutipada Jardhana Sampada Se jane bhakti rasasara Se jane bhakti rasasara Se Gaurangera Madhulila Jar Karne Praveshila Gaurangera Gaurangera Madhulila Jar Karne Praveshila Hridaya Nirmala Belota Hridaya Nirmala Belotara Hridaya Nirmala Jai Gauranga Namaloy Tar Hoy Prima Doj Jai Gauranga Namaloy Tar Hoy Prima Doj Tar Mui Jai Bolihari Tare Mui Jai Bolihari Tare Mui Jai Gauranga Gunete Jure Nitya Lile Tare Spure Gauranga Gunete Jure Nitya Lila Tare Spure Se Janna Bhakati Arikari Se Janna Bhakati Arikari Se Janna Bhakati Gaurangera Sangi Gane Nitya Siddha Karimane Gaurangera Sangi Gane Nitya Siddha Karimane Se Jaya Vrajendra Sutapash Se Jaya Vrajendra Sutapash Se Jaya Vrajendra Shri Gaura Mandala Bhumi Jeba Jane Chintamani Shri Gaura Mandala Bhumi Jeba Jane Chintamani Tahoy Vraja Bhume Ba Tarahoya Vraja Bhume Ba Tarahoya Vraja Gaura Prema Rasanave Shetarange Jeba Dube Gaura Prema Rasanave Shetarange Jeba Dube Shri Radha Madhava Antaranga Shri Radha Madhava Antaranga Shri Radha Grihe Baba Nete Take Hago Ranga Bole Dake Grihe Baba Nete Take Hago Ranga Bole Dake Narottama Mage Tarasanga Narottama Mage Tarasanga Grihe Baba Nite Take Hago Ranga Bole Dake Grihe Baba Nite Take Haga Ranga Bole Dake Grihe Baba Nite Take Hago Ranga Bole Dake Grihe Baba Nite Take Hago Ranga Bole Dake Jai Gora Nitai Gora Nitai Gora Nitai Jai Gora Nitai Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Premanande. I'd like to welcome back Madhavananda Prabhu and Krishna Kun to ISV. Please give them a warm welcome. They'll be here all week. Literally. Have your travels been going well so far? Sacramento? Okay, good. So we have great privilege of reading together from the Bhagavad-gita. Nothing so satisfying as going through the day. You woke up this morning early. You chanted, you got yourself ready for the work that you had to do in the afternoon. You dealt with many different kinds of situations. It's just normal life of a human being. And then somehow or other you got yourself to this temple with the intention of sitting and hearing the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we're going to read some of the verses that are personally spoken by Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and then we'll also read the purports. The commentary, which is faithful to the teachings of the disciplic succession, which gives us the clear context through which we can understand exactly how to apply the direct words of Krishna's Supreme Personality of Godhead. And last week, we ended up near the end of the 5th chapter, and so we're taking up there again. And the last verse that we read was verse number 24. And so we're taking up at 525. Correct? Is everyone happy about this? Yes. Okay, good. Say yes. Yes. All right, so let's get a sense for the aesthetic of the language, and I'll say it, then you can repeat. And enter into this, the beauty of the Sanskrit language as it was spoken by Krishna. This beautiful poetry that rolled off the lips of the Supreme. Labante brahmanirvanam rishiyashina kulmashaha Chinadvaida yatatmana sarvabhuta hiterata labante, achieve brahmanirvanam, liberation in the Supreme. Vrishaya, those who are active within. Shina kalmashaha, who are devoid of all sins. Chinna, having torn off. Dvaida, duality. Yata atmana, engaged in self-realization. Sarvabhuta, for all living entities. Hite, in welfare work. Rataha, engaged. Translation, those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. Let's say it together. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness can be said to be engaged in welfare work for all living entities. When a person is actually in the knowledge that Krishna is the fountainhead of everything, then when he acts in that spirit, he acts for everyone. The sufferings of humanity are due to forgetfulness of Krishna as the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend. Therefore, to act to revive this Krishna consciousness within the entire human society is the highest welfare work. One cannot be engaged in such first-class welfare work without being liberated in the Supreme. A Krishna-conscious person has no doubt about the supremacy of Krishna. He has no doubt because he is completely freed from all sins. This is the state of divine love. A person engaged only in ministering to the physical welfare of human society cannot factually help anyone. Temporary relief of the external body and the mind is not satisfactory. The real cause of one's difficulties in the hard struggle for life may be found in one's forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. When a man is fully conscious of his relationship with Krishna, he is actually a liberated soul, although he may be in the material tabernacle. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru and Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sadvatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. And now let's go back and look at this verse a little more closely and have some discussion on some of the points that Krishna has made and that Prabhupada has made in this purport. So again, Krishna says, those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. So one of the main points that Prabhupada is making in the purport, he summarizes the point that he's making in the purport in his first sentence. And he says, only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness can be said to be engaged in welfare work for all living entities. So this is a foundational point that comes up again and again, because one has to know ultimately that one is not the physical body. The Shastra says, asango hyayam purushaha. The living entity really has nothing to do with the material world. He has no actual connection here and no real business being here ultimately. There's a sense of a dreamlike state that Maitreya expresses to Vidura in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when he describes the involvement that a living entity like myself has with the material world. And that is, he describes how in a dream one might see some horrific scene. And he says, just like you may see your own head being cut off in a dream and be horrified. However, this is not possible to see your own head cut off in the dream, or see your own head cut off, but one's able to project that on the screen of the mind and then react to it. And the reaction and the suffering is real. However, the imagery is conjured. It's something that is not permanent, but is a concoction that is it's very much like a dream. While somebody's dreaming and lying on the bed, they may move their arms and they may jerk from side to side. Their eyes might move. Even you can see with animals sometimes, animals lying there asleep and like running with its legs and so forth, because the living entity stays active even within the body as he's sleeping. Krishna says earlier in the Gita, Nahi kashchit shanamapi jatu tishchat karma krit karyate hyavasha karma sarva prakriti jayar gunai. That the living entity, he says, essentially is always active. And even in the dreamlike state, I'm active on a psychic level. It's always moving. And nonetheless, in the dream, I'm misidentifying myself. I'm thinking that there are many circumstances that I'm involved with, but when I wake up from the dream, I realize that actually I'm part of a family, I live in a house, I have other responsibilities to do, and I become aware that that dream was actually a phantom, and I was only passing through. The Vedas describe the process of self-realization to be that of waking up from a dreamlike state in which I'm imagining that I'm a man or a woman or a cat or a dog. I'm identifying I'm a spiritual soul that comes from the spiritual world. However, now I've become involved in this lower energy, and I'm identifying with it. So, if one has the misconception that one is the body and that other people are their bodies, there's not much good that one can do for others. One might, by one's welfare work, even reinforce the illusion that other people can be happy in this body, or that they are their body, and that they should be happy in it, and there's a way to be well-adjusted. Not to say that one shouldn't become well-adjusted in this world, and balanced in one's life, and take medicine when one needs medicine, and so forth. However, one should not at any time mistake the body to be the self, because it is, as Prabhupada mentions in the last line of this purport, our tabernacle. And what is a tabernacle? It is a moving temple. For instance, if you go to the airport in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey, there's a little prayer room. And there are various areas there. There's a place for Muslims to pray, and there's a place for Christians to pray. And in the corner of that little prayer room, there's a tabernacle. And by the way, it's a good place to chant japa, because not many people come in there. And there's nowhere else in the airport where you can freely do your japa, except these prayer rooms are pretty nice. You can just go in there and sit quietly, and no one will bother you. The tabernacle is a little box in the corner. And as I'm chanting my japa in there, sometimes I see people come in and offer their prayers before the tabernacle. And in days of yore, nomads would carry that little box around, and within it is the essence of the Supreme. And they would worship there at that temple. So in a similar way, the Prabhupada's giving this metaphor that the human body, it's kind of a boxy-like thing, and it's a little container, and inside the soul. So it moves about, just like a tabernacle is portable. So similarly, this body's portable. And so in the same way, each human body is considered to be a moving temple, because the Supreme is there within the heart. And one who has this vision is described in the Shri Upanishad, Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Vanu Pashyati Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam Tatona Vijagupsite Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Hatmaivad Budvijanataha Tatrakoma Kashoka Ekat Vam Manupashita. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks in quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things, what then can be illusion or anxiety for him. One who always sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and sees the Supreme Lord within everything never hates anything or any being. And probably if we wait 7 or 8 seconds, we'll see that very verse before our eyes by some kind of magic. It's possible. We might see it on the screen. In these two verses, we hear about the vision of someone who sees the body as a moving temple, and recognizes that the living entity is within. In other words, that person is seeing all living entities as spiritual sparks, and recognizes that they are part of Krishna. So this is the vision of an advanced person. And such an advanced person then interacts with people in ways that are beneficial to them. In fact, there's a description of the various levels of devotees. And the lowest level of devotee is particularly defined by his or her inability to do good for others. Verse? Sorry, how does it start? Huh? You're supposed to know what's in my head. Okay, so the Kanishta Adhikari. No, that's the Madhyam Adhikari. Acharyam eva harye pujam ya sharaye hate natad bhakteshu chanyeshu sabhakta prakrita smitaha. So this verse particularly says that a person who has entered into devotional service, who is still has a materialistic mentality, doesn't know how to natad bhakteshu cha anyeshu, that such a person can't recognize advanced devotees, and also cha anyeshu, and doesn't also worship them, and also doesn't know how to do good for others. Cha anyeshu means for other living entities. It doesn't enter into their mental system that the scenario that living entities can be helped spiritually. And they go about their ritualistic practices and are unaware of doing good for others, as is the main theme of this verse, sarvabhuta hiterataha, which means to know how to do good for others, for other living entities. Nonetheless, however, the devotee who advances to the middle position, and of course there are various gradations in the middle as well, but as a definition, the middle is described as one who knows how to do good for others, because the vision is increased and one sees that there's actually an eternal living entity residing within the body that can be given help in connecting to the Supreme. So this verse says, Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu dusatsacha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyamaha. Madhyama means middle. And so it describes how this person sees various categories. One category is the person recognizes Ishvara or Krishna, that he sees there is a supreme controller. This is a very advanced consciousness because there are many living entities who are completely unaware that there is a supreme controller. And they may be confused about the whole issue, but the Madhyamadikari is not confused at all. Others who are confused for various reasons or reticent about entertaining the idea that there's a supreme are described by Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita, Vitaraga bhaya krodha, manmaya mamupashrita. So he says, he describes three kinds of attitudes or worldviews that prevent one from understanding or worshiping Ishvara. So one of them is that the person is very much attached to the objects of the senses and has a high degree of optimism about organizing his or her life in such a way as to permanently enjoy the material world. This is raga, mean unnecessary attachment to the world. And this obscures one's ability to worship the Supreme. One becomes very self-centered and forgets one's ultimate duty in life. And then bhaya means that a person becomes disappointed because the way the world moves can be quite disappointing. Do you agree with that? Can it be disappointing? Yes. It can be very disappointing, in fact, and there's a cumulative effect of staying in the world too long. And if you see somebody that's really bummed out, you can just know they've been here too long. Time to go get out of this place. They stay here too long. There's an impression that develops in the heart, which is known as bhaya. And it's a fear of actually having a personal relationship with anybody, what to speak of with God. So there's this idea that I just want to avoid everything. You say avoid, right? Avoid means, make something void. There's nothing. I want to avoid it. The opposite of love is not hate, but it's indifference. One becomes indifferent to God because of not having positive information about the possibility of there being a personal and benevolent and friendly God. And then one becomes also disappointed by the way that individual relationships never work out. Even if they do work out, then we're separated from them. And therefore becomes fearful of the idea of there being a relationship with the Supreme, a personal relationship. And this is what Krishna says is a kind of attitude that a living entity can develop that prevents him or her from actually embracing the idea of Ishvara and getting excited about it and saying, yes, I'm glad there's an Ishvara, and I would like to have a part in offering giving my attention and worship to such a person. And then finally there's krodha, which means anger. And when a person hears too many philosophies which are fragmented. That is, they hear fragments of various philosophies which don't add up, and they're also not connected to any kind of philosophy or logic through which one can understand and appreciate that there's a supreme. One might become angry toward, this is krodha, anger, angry towards the whole endeavor that people have towards trying to understand the supreme, and they might just say, there is nothing, and become angry with those who are endeavoring to understand Ishvara, the supreme controller. So Krishna says, Vitta, you have to give up those kinds of mentalities to come to worship the supreme wholeheartedly. Vita raga bhaya krodha, manmaya mamupashita, bahavo jnana tapasa. He said, don't worry though, a lot of people have done it. You can do that, you can give it up. So the person who is a middle-class devotee is very advanced and sees Ishvara and appreciates Ishvara. At least the person's thinking, there is a God and I'm not him. And then Ishvara, Ishvare taradineshu. The person also recognizes devotees. Balisheshu recognizes that there are innocent people in the world who are open to learning about Ishvara. And then there are dvisatsu, people who are angry about the whole idea of there being God and against it. And so he says the person knows all these four categories very clearly, can see them, and then conducts his or her life in a way in which to interact with these four. So toward Ishvara, the person gives love, prema, and means that the person's endeavor is to develop love for Ishvara. Maitri means friendship, and that is that a person develops friendship with those who are also on the spiritual path, who also have similar faith, who are in Ishvara. Kripopeksha means that towards the innocent, that person is prepared to give as much mercy as possible in the form of teaching spiritual knowledge, giving resources so the person can also advance. This is the preoccupation of those who are advanced in devotional service, to help others. And towards the dvisatsu, means those who are envious or angry about the whole idea of there being a God, the person's upeksha, which means that he steps out of their way and doesn't make them more angry, lets them slide, avoids them, and at the same time wishes them well and thinks that I wish there was a way in which I could help them. But the injunction of the scripture is to steer clear so they don't become inflamed and more determined in being against God. So this is the description of a person who is advanced in devotional service and able to appreciate the Supreme, and who dedicates his or her life to the activities of Krishna consciousness, knowing the various categories in detail. And this requires having had contact with devotees and having heard sufficiently so that one can understand the real situation of life, which is that I am an eternal spiritual soul who is residing temporarily within a biomechanical body, described here as a tabernacle, and that the ultimate good I can do for others is to help them come closer to Krishna, to Ishvara. And also, one might also understand the futility of trying to help people on the material level, although that's not entirely against the nature of devotees. They have compassion even as people are suffering, to provide them with whatever is necessary so that they can live somewhat of a balanced life and help them reduce their suffering so they can take to Krishna consciousness. For instance, Prabhupada in Mayapur, seeing some of the village children who were hungry, made a proclamation, nobody within 20 miles of an ISKCON temple should go hungry. We should profusely distribute food to people. Of course, not ordinary food, but prasadam. Which brings up another point that's in the purport. Someone might say, yes, let me help people, I'll serve them food. But then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta points out that oftentimes in such so-called philanthropy, one then might go and kill animals and then say, here, let me feed people. And in doing so, one might implicate oneself and the people who are eating the slaughtered animals in more karma, doing more harm than good. Even though the intention is right, because the knowledge isn't perfectly tuned, then one may do harm instead of good. So one has to know what is what, and what is actually good for others in order to do good for them. And now I want to hear from you any reflections that's anything you heard in the verse or the purport or in the monologue so far that's stuck in your mind. Mukharavind.
Maharaj, you told about that how self-realization is like waking up. It's really such a great relief. Actually, today night I saw some dream that I'm traveling in a train with some devotees, and then I don't know, somehow I got down the train and took the opposite train, and after 2 hours I realized, no, I'm going in wrong direction, and then I should take the other train, and then suddenly I said, oh, I'm in dreaming, I'm not in actual situation, and I felt so relief. Wow, it's not actual situation. I don't have to fear anything, I don't have to take care of anything. It happened. So I was just thinking that it's such a great relief when we when we get the self-realization and that awakening happen.
Yes, that experience is described. You can pass right to Bali behind you. In the Shastra, it's that take your experience of waking up from a dream and see how to apply that to waking up in spiritual life. It's very similar. Yes.
Good that Mukharvinda pointed. I also saw you in dream. You are you're
Thanks
correcting
for
me.
letting me hang around.
Just recently, that you are correcting me something. I don't remember exactly.
That probably wasn't a dream.
But it was good, transcendental, always having devotees. So I like the point, the first purport Prabhupada mentioned, that one should be fully Krishna consciousness in order to do the welfare for the other living beings. Because that is really a profound statement, and I completely agree that that's what we need to be. Sometimes we go for preaching and all, and we exhibit our impurities and all, but that is self-purification, but definitely one has to advance in Krishna consciousness to give to others.
In what ways do you exhibit your impurities when you're preaching to others? Or might one? I doubt if you do, because I don't see that you have any impurities, but if you were to think of a scenario where somebody was teaching Krishna consciousness to others, but was not fully purified, how would that manifest, in your opinion?
Well, there is no impurities, but one thing is when we are distributing, it's sometimes the perception and we are calculation of different diversity when preaching, means adults, female, Mataji and kids, we go together and do. So in one house we are doing, I think myself, Subhakar, Namsmaran and another Prabhuji, 4 people, we are talking to one Mataji, and after 5-10 minutes she is willing to accept the Bhagavatam. She said, okay, this is the one. And her husband was there, but we didn't engage her, she's just listening. But after 15 minutes when we got the book, whole book, and inside kept it, and he came and he was charging to us, you guys are forcing my wife because she's innocent and she's a lady, and then we realized that really we are 4 adults, 4 men talking to one lady, and she said, she's like that, my wife is like that, and she just accepted, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and by her innocence, I say innocence is a good thing to, Krishna is willing that. But anyway, he was in a different mood, so we didn't argue much. I said, yes, it's our mistake. We apologize and we came back. But that's it is our own understanding. By gradually we know how to deal with similar situations.
That's a good point. I mean, I don't see an impurity there, but I do see in the interaction with other people and trying to teach them Krishna consciousness, one deals with many subtleties through which one actually becomes purified and expert. And we see that Prabhupada writes in the verse, Mahat sevam dwara mahurva muktes tamo dwaram yoshitam sangi sangam mahantaste samachita prasanta vimanyavak surira sadhavoye. And in this verse, spoken by Rishabhadeva, he says that the way the door to liberation is by association with Mahatmas. And Mahatma is described in the verse as Vimanyava Surira Sadhavoye. The Vimanyava means that one is gentle, he doesn't become angry. And Prabhupada writes in his word for word, he gives an extended meaning of that. He said that one should be able to teach Krishna consciousness to others without becoming angry at them. And in a later teaching of Rishabhadeva, in the same chapter, which is chapter 5, it's 5th canto, 5th chapter, he says that when one has dependents or disciples, one has to go on teaching them despite the fact that they cause one aggravation by not getting it or by not following properly. And so he said that one has to go on teaching again and again without becoming disturbed with them. So there is a case for those who are teaching Krishna consciousness to others. They can develop tolerance and so forth. And in the process of teaching, they become free from many impurities. If one is sincerely trying, one will be challenged by the very environment one goes out into, because obviously you're going to meet people that don't agree with you and may have various ideas. Counter ideas, and they'll present them in the process of speaking to them about these things. One clarifies the philosophy for oneself. In other words, unless one's challenged with the doubts of others and has to go back and research and search also within one's self to find the answers and to become very clear about them, then one doesn't come to this middle platform of devotional service. Because this is also described as a point at which one has very firm faith in Krishna consciousness. And this requires some purification and some experience in teaching Krishna consciousness and hearing about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Thank you for your points. Yes?
I like the point in purport where how Prabhupada says the reason for our suffering, because we say that it's because of my work or my boss or my kids or so many people we think accept from us as reasons for our suffering. But here Prabhupada says that the real cause of one's difficulties in the hard struggle for life may be found in one's forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. So that stops everything and puts the responsibility on us that we can do something positive about our hard struggle and suffering. So
yes, thank you. In a very practical way, remembering one's relationship with Krishna, especially while one's practicing, in the stage of practicing devotional service, that is practicing to come to the point of spontaneously remembering Krishna, it's important to stop at various intervals in the day, especially in the early morning, and if you can in the afternoon, and also at night, to hear and chant about Krishna. This is practically remembering him. As Krishna tells Arjuna, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudyacha mayarpita mano buddhir mami vaishyasya samshayaha. That you do your work, because as he mentions in other parts of the Gita, you'll be compelled to work anyway because of your nature, but at the same time you should remember me. And Prabhupada comments in his purport that this means that one should go on with one's work in life, but at the same time chant Hare Krishna. It may not mean that while you're being interviewed for your job, you're going on chanting Hare Krishna, bringing your biba, but it means that you should be regulated in having a practice so that you stop and you sit with your family or you sit with your friends and you hear very attentively, this is tantamount to, look up the word, tantamount to remembering Krishna. There's no difference between hearing about him and the association of devotees and remembering him. So this is absolutely necessary for one to be fortified from the influence of the lower modes of material nature, and at the same time to develop superior knowledge that helps one to remember Krishna constantly. And this can be achieved through the consistent and regular practice of hearing every day. What does the word mean, please?
So it's an adjective, and it means equivalent in seriousness to something, or virtually the same as. For example, the resignations were tantamount to an admission of guilt.
Tantamount. You better mark that one down. Spell it, please.
T-A-N-T-A.
Tanta.
M-O-U-N-T.
Mount. Tantamount.
The origin is 17th century from the earlier verb tantamount, which meant amount to as much. From Italian.
Tantamount.
Yeah. From Italian, tanto montare.
Tanto montare. So, what does tanto montare mean? When I went to Italy and I was picking up Italian words and saying them, then Manu Sevita, he's Italian, he said, "You can say Italian, but don't use that accent." He was a little angry at me. Tantamount. Okay, that's a good word. Everyone say tantamount. Okay, equal to something else in importance. Tantamount. Not to be confused with paramount. Yes, please pass the microphone back to...
I was thinking about the example of the airport and going in to chant your japa into the chapels that they offer at the different airports, and how there's a tabernacle, and that our body is also a tabernacle that we can carry around with us, knowing that Krishna is our best friend in our heart. And how at any time we can be there to help others remember God, but it is a real challenge because so many people have gotten frustrated with God realization from their different faiths and the different levels of understanding about who God is, or any kind of knowledge about God. And we're so fortunate as devotees because we have that depth, which most walks of life don't have that depth. And so people tend to not want to hear. I mean, even the word God makes them like, ugh, because they've gotten so frustrated.
Yes, good point. And oftentimes, or more than often, majority of the time, the kind of relief that one can give others and bringing them closer in spiritual life isn't through a philosophical presentation, but it's more befriending people and heart-to-heart presentation, giving them gifts selflessly and so forth. When people feel the goodwill of another, they tend to want to know them more. And when they want to know them more, they open their heart to the things that the person knows. And through that, people generally, through this sangha, they become part of a group where they start to share the same values. And what sustains most people is their initial friendship that they make with a devotee. It's very difficult to make philosophical presentations and have them stick, because there are a lot of various alternatives that are available, especially in the Bay Area or any major place. But people can go anywhere and get a nice presentation about various philosophical points, and they do. For instance, if you look up on meetup.com, you could just make a circuit for yourself and go around to various spiritual, philosophical presentations and do one a week, and then just keep the circuit going and never really attach yourself to any particular tradition or discipline. It's altogether possible. what I find is that when somebody meets a devotee who's deeply practicing and is impressed by that person and feels a kinship with such a person, then there's a kind of appreciation, which is a form of budding faith in the process. Faith means that there's something special awakening with the heart of that person. It comes after having unknown association with devotees. In other words, I don't know exactly what a devotee is, I don't know what devotional service is, but I do know I like this person and I'm impressed by him or her, and therefore I have an attraction. And then from that sadhu sangha, there is a little awakening of shraddha, or faith. Shraddha actually means where you put your heart. Shraddha means the heart, and da is an active verb, which means where you place something. And you put your heart into it and think, well, if they're into it, then I'd like to be into it too, whatever it is. And then the heart opens and one begins to make advancement in devotional service by sadhu sangha. Sadhu sangha means that one associates with devotees. And then one makes a decision that I'll do this also, and then begins to pay particular attention to the philosophy. So generally it's a more heart-to-heart kind of connection that people take to. There are a few very intellectually oriented devotees that I know that were not interested in sadhu sangha, but who were very interested in the philosophy. However, they're very rare. they're oriented in that direction. The philosophy tends to come in and then fortify the feeling one already has towards the devotees. One feels like these people are good, they're nice, their qualities are nice, I like what they're doing. And then when they hear such a person hears the philosophy systematically, or even intermittently, one then begins to have what changes from this kind of emotional faith to a well-reasoned faith. One begins to think like, well, not only do I like it, but it also makes sense. It makes sense. And this is necessary to have these things together. And then one starts to develop shraddha, or faith, in the scripture itself. And this is a very fortunate situation, because then one can spend time, for instance, with the Bhagavad-gita and have a feeling of direct communion with the Supreme, that he's speaking directly to me, and so forth. And then one starts to get real traction in spiritual life. A few more reflections? 1, 2, 3.
So this is Vaikuntha Nayak Prabhu from India.
Vaikuntha Nayak. Wow, this is a banner night.
Dandavats Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I like the point on how being exposed to too many philosophies can make one angry and take us away from Krishna. I believe it's another form of atyahara. Also, I was reminded of how Radhika Raman Prabhu had mentioned that we need to read other philosophies or points of view to the extent that it helps me in my service.
Yes, the Goswamis, the direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, bring out verses from the Bhagavatam, and also have composed original verses which say, don't become a bookworm. Means don't read many, many books in order to make an excellent presentation, just to show that you know everything. The intention of reading the Shastra should be to come closer to Krishna. In fact, one godbrother of mine, Rishabhadev, who was leaving his body due to cancer, met with a group of other godbrothers, and in his final days, some of his realizations, and oftentimes when people are leaving or know they're going to leave soon, the realizations are kind of direct and raw and profound. So he said, his comment was, don't read Prabhupada's books just for the knowledge, but read them to have association with Prabhupada and become deeper in your devotional service. Thank you, Vaikuntha Nayaka. Great to hear from you. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I realized from your discourse today that if there are no tears while chanting, you said, one has a steel-framed heart, which is my condition. So that was a good point to learn, and that having dhruta chitta is essential. So.
Yes, and now we'll look at that verse. Verse number, please. Huh? 2, 3, 24. Everyone say. 2, 3, 24. 2, 3, 24. I'll say, please repeat. Tadashmasaram hridayam batedam. Yadgrihyamaner harinamadheyai. Navikriyatata yada vikaro. Netre jalam gatra ruhesha harshaha. Translation. Certainly that heart is steel-framed, which in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change when ecstasy takes place, tears fill the eyes, and the hairs stand on end. Purport. We should take note with profit that in the first 3 chapters of the 2nd canto, a gradual process of development of devotional service is being presented. In the first chapter, the first step in devotional service for God consciousness by the process of hearing and chanting has been stressed, and a gross conception of the personality of Godhead in his universal form for the beginners is recommended. By such a gross conception of God, through the material manifestations of his energy, one is enabled to spiritualize the mind and the senses and gradually concentrate the mind upon Lord Vishnu, the Supreme, who is present as a supersoul in every heart and everywhere, in every atom of the material universe. The system of Pancha Upasana, recommending 5 mental attitudes for the common man, is also enacted for this purpose, namely gradual development, worship of the superior, that may be in the form of fire, electricity, the sun, the mass of the living beings, Lord Shiva, and at last the impersonal supersoul, the partial representation of Lord Vishnu. Little esoteric there, but bear with the purport. They are all nicely described in the 2nd chapter, but in the 3rd chapter, further development is prescribed after one has actually reached the stage of Vishnu worship or pure devotional service, and the mature stage of Vishnu worship is suggested herein in relation to the change of heart. The whole process of spiritual culture is aimed at changing the heart of the living being in the matter of his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord as a subordinate servant, which is his eternal constitutional position. So with the progress of devotional service, the reaction of change in the heart is exhibited by gradual detachment from the sense of material enjoyment by a false sense of lording it over the world, and an increase in the attitude of rendering loving service to the Lord. Vidhi bhakti, or regulated devotional service by the limbs of the body, namely the eyes, the ears, the nose, the hands, and the legs, as already explained herein before, is now stressed herein in relation to the mind, which is the impetus for all activities of the limbs of the body. Beautiful sentence. It is expected by all means that by discharging regulated devotional service, one must manifest the change of heart. If there is no change, the heart must be considered steel-framed, for it is not melted even when there is chanting of the holy name of the Lord. We must always remember that hearing and chanting are the basic principles of discharging devotional duties. And if they are properly performed, there will follow the reactional ecstasy with signs of tears in the eyes and standing of the hairs on the body. These are natural consequences and are the preliminary symptoms of the bhava stage, which occurs before one reaches the perfectional stage of prema, love of Godhead. If the reaction does not take place, even after continuous hearing and chanting of the holy name of the Lord, it may be considered to be due to offenses only. That is the opinion of the Sandarbha. In the beginning of chanting of the holy name of the Lord, if the devotee has not been very careful about evading the 10 kinds of offenses at the feet of the holy name, certainly the reaction of feelings of separation will not be visible by tears in the eyes and standing of the hair on end. The bhava stage is manifested by 8 transcendental symptoms, namely inertness, perspiration, standing of hairs on end, failing of the voice, trembling, paleness of the body, tears in the eyes, and finally trance. The Nectar of Devotion, a summary study of Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, explains those symptoms and vividly describes other transcendental developments, both in steady and accelerating manifestations. Prabhupada's words are poetical. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has very critically discussed all these bhava displays in connection with some unscrupulous neophytes imitating the above symptoms for cheap appreciation. Not only Vishwanath Chakravarti, but also Srila Rupa Goswami treated them very critically. Sometimes all the above 8 symptoms of ecstasy are imitated by the mundane devotees, prakrita sahajas, but the pseudo-symptoms are at once detected when one sees the pseudo-devotee addicted to so many forbidden things. Even though decorated with the signs of a devotee, a person addicted to smoking, drinking, or illegitimate sex with women cannot have all the above-mentioned ecstatic symptoms. But it is seen that sometimes these symptoms are willfully imitated, and for this reason, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti accuses the imitators of being stone-hearted men. They are sometimes even affected by the reflection of such transcendental symptoms, yet if they still do not give up the forbidden habits, then they are hopeless cases for transcendental realization. When Lord Chaitanya met Srila Ramananda Roy of Kavaur on the bank of the Godavari, the Lord developed all these symptoms, but because of the presence of some non-devotee brahmanas who were attendants of the Roy, the Lord suppressed these symptoms. So sometimes they are not visible even in the body of the first-class devotee for certain circumstantial reasons. Therefore, real steady bhava is definitely displayed in the matter of cessation of material desires, shanti, utilization of every moment in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, avyarta kalatvam, eagerness for glorifying the Lord constantly, namagani sadaruchi, attraction for living in the land of the Lord, pritis tad visatistale, complete detachment from material happiness, virakti, and pridelessness, mana shunyata. One who has developed all these transcendental qualities is really possessed of the bhava stage, as distinguished from the stone-hearted imitator of or mundane devotee. The whole process can be summarized as follows. The advanced devotee who chants the holy name of the Lord in a perfectly offenseless manner is friendly to everyone, can actually relish the transcendental taste of glorifying the Lord. And the result of such realization is reflected in the cessation of all material desires, etc., as mentioned above. The neophytes, due to their being in the lower stage of devotional service, are invariably envious, so much so that they invent their own ways and means of devotional regulations without following the acharyas. As such, even if they make a show of constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord, they cannot relish the transcendental tastes of the holy name. Therefore, the show of tears in the eyes, trembling perspiration, unconsciousness, etc. is condemned. They can, however, get in touch with a pure devotee of the Lord and rectify their bad habits. Otherwise, they shall continue to be stone-hearted and unfit for any treatment. A complete progressive march on the return path home, back to Godhead, will depend on the instructions of the revealed scriptures directed by a realized devotee. Full meal for you there. Read the whole purport, and it's important to consider this verse, the essence of which is to note that one should not practice something without getting a result. And this requires avoiding offenses while chanting and giving one's full attention to the process so that one can advance in devotional service. And this will be directly perceived, as the Bhagavatam says, Bhakti parishanu bhavu viraktir anyata traisa trika eka kala prapadya manase yatasnata sus tusti pushti shud apayonugasam, which compares the process of devotional service to eating. When you're hungry and you feel nourishment, satisfaction, and your hunger goes away. In a similar way, when you properly perform devotional service, you'll experience bhakti for yourself, which means your natural attraction for worshiping the Lord. Anubhava, you'll see the Lord for yourself directly within everything. And very importantly, you'll also experience virakti anyatra, which means detachment for all things that aren't related to devotional service of Krishna. And very fortunately, we saw in this verse that there are a catalog of symptoms that you can compare your own self to, or your own qualities to, that are given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Srila Sanatana Goswami in his teachings in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 22. You can read all the details there, but there's symptoms that will become manifest in one who's whose heart is actually becoming soft, as we mentioned before, through the process of devotional service. And there are very definite symptoms that are mentioned there. Shantir avyarta kalatvam, and these have to do with the stilling of material desires and the not wanting to waste any time. The main interest is not the main interest, really the only interest. Tasmad ekena manasa, one-pointed attention on devotional service, and one feels that if a moment is lost, it's a great waste. I've wasted a very valuable asset. And all those are cataloged, so Prabhupada urges us to see those and to notice these as signposts, how we're advancing in devotional service. We have a couple more minutes for a few comments before we have the main act of the night, which is Nitai, who's going to give the 5-minute Gita class. Yes?
Prabhuji, I was thinking that if for a person when they are trying to advance in spiritual consciousness and Krishna consciousness, is it necessary for us to always look in to see where we are in our spiritual life? How important is that? Or is it important to just continue to do devotional service? Because the thought that I had is, if suppose you feel that, you have some symptom, you might feel very, your mind can act in such a way that this person is not exalted, or this person is exalted, or, kind of that.
Well, looking at other people to see if they're exalted is not as productive as looking at one's own self. And it is important to notice that, and that's the purpose of this verse. This verse is pointing out that you should notice that if I'm chanting and I'm not making progress, there's a cause for that. I'm not doing something right. I'm making some offense somewhere. This is brought out in the Harinam Chintamani by Haridas Thakur, that if you see, or maybe it's the Madhurya Kadambini, that if you see that you don't have an attraction for chanting Hare Krishna, you can assume, it is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, you can assume that either in this life or past lives you made aparatas or offenses. And so it is important to check in and see, do I have an attraction for hearing? This is what Jiva Goswami says the ultimate test, and is mentioned by Kapiladev also, that if I can measure directly how advanced I am in devotional service by how eager I am to hear, period. If I'm interested in hearing, if it's something that attracts my mind, then to that degree I'm advancing. We should notice that and see. Just like with your health, of course, after a certain age, you have to go in for a yearly checkup. Of course, everyone should. People have to go in because you never know what's creeping up in the material body. Anything could be happening unless you go to an expert and look and see. Colonoscopy, for instance. A lot of people die of colon cancer. It's a slow-growing cancer, but they never looked for it, so they didn't find it, and they just one day realize it's spread all over, and it's too late. So you have to monitor things. And in the process of devotional service, we should look in and see how we're doing, and as we're practicing. And that might also be not only our own introspection, but taking help from mentors who can notice our particular modes of worship and how we're doing. And we can compare notes with peers also. This is kuya makyati prichyati. This should be an active investigation to see how I'm progressing in devotional service. And one can always make adjustments. And it's necessary throughout our lives because we're always changing where we are and how we're moving in the world. So we should always be adjusting ourselves towards the process of surrender. We may get comfortable at a certain point and then stop making advancement. That's known as a plateau. It's easy to get comfortable and then not have that impetus to move forward. After all, we should have eagerness. We should be hungry to move forward. And if we find ourselves becoming complacent, for instance, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says a devotee may advance in devotional service and pass the first stage, then comes into the second stage where it actually is advanced. And then people start to notice. And then everyone wants to come and be with that person and give accolades and so forth. Then the person may become swept away and think like, well, okay, this is good enough. Who needs prema when I got this? And then like my Mridanga teacher, Akinchana Krishna Prabhu always says, he says in the practice of Mridanga, he said, when you think you're done, you're done. You think this is good enough, then you're over it. You're not going to make any more, you're not going to learn anything else because you think, this is good enough. So we should notice these symptoms. Am I hungry? Am I humble? I'm humble and hungry. If I don't have attraction for hearing, I think, what's wrong with me? If I'm not doing my japa well, that's easy enough to do. You can be doing it 1 week, 1 year, and then the next year, all of a sudden, by degrees, you slide off. And the next thing you know, your japa is terrible. And so is your consciousness. And then you have to get back on the horse again and again and again. So yes, it's important.